Yes, we are back in the issues room. Today we'll bring you the 190th edition of the Issues Room podcast. And of course, I'm Moses Sandy. I'm here with my friend and brother, Alphonso, our colleague, Volcano Shelton, who is currently in Liberia, is able to be with us this evening. Volcano is really struggling with the weather condition in Liberia. He's currently under the weather. He's not doing too well. So let's hope that Volcano will be here with us on Tuesday. The most talked about that will be October the 10th. Today is October the 6th, so it means Alfonso, we have 4 days to the presidential and legislative elections in Liberia. I would like to use this time to welcome our many viewers wherever they are. I want to welcome all of you to this podcast. We have come this evening so we can delve into the issue of national security. We want to take a closer look as Liberians prepare for the October 10th general presidential elections. There are a lot of things that have been happening in Liberia. We really want to take a closer look at some of these contemporary issues and what impact, if not contained, could have on the outcome of the election. Hey, Manus Mo, welcome, my brother, from Crystal, Minnesota. And Alfonso, let me give you the opportunity to say something before we can get down to business here.
Definitely,
Monu,
brother.
welcome.
Definitely, brother. It's good. Happy to be here with you. Again, we are in very important and critical times in the life of our country and our people. So definitely, I'm glad to be here to have this conversation. And I want to join you to wish Volcano good health. I know he's doing well. It's just the conditions on the ground that are enforcing themselves on him. But definitely, if you're listening, excuse me, Manasumo, Frederick Monju, please share the link and ask everybody to join this conversation. Even prepared to, put in your comments, etc. But I'm happy to be here and to discuss the upcoming elections and how they will impact our future in terms of development, but also in terms of keeping the peace in the country.
Thank you, Alfonso. Um, let's get down to business here. We have 4 days. Today is the 6th of October. The most consequential election is now 4 days away. Next Tuesday, at this time, Liberians will begin to receive, you know, election results from the various polling centers. So it means that this is an election that will either make or break Liberia, right, Alfonso?
Yes. So these elections are very consequential, Moses, for several reasons. One, the previous election that ushered in President Weah, the incumbent had already served the legally required term in office and she was on her way out. So she couldn't manipulate the elections to keep herself in office, etc. So again, but she did something good, and we must give her credit for that. After serving 2 terms, she left peacefully. There are presidents and leaders in Africa who don't do that. They try to change the constitutions to go for 3 terms. They try to create other scenarios and stuff that will benefit them. Guinea is an example. But she served her 2 terms and she left, even though she did other things that we disagree. These elections are very important and consequential because President Weir is seeking a 2nd term, which is allowed by law. So he's not barred. Therefore, usually in Africa and in many other places, people want the 2nd term and try to do any and everything to get that 2nd term. and that makes these elections consequential. The second reason that makes these elections consequential is the passion and emotion with which Liberian people are approaching these elections. I mean, every day on a daily basis, everywhere you go in the markets and the villages, people are excited. They want to speak. They want to use these elections to speak, to exercise their power. And that makes these elections very important because if you try to circumvent the will, the power, and the voice of the people often resist and speak back at you, and there could be consequences. So again, these elections are very consequential. They're very important for those critical reasons. Besides the fact, of course, that we want to consolidate our democracy, we are a nascent democracy right now. Quite honestly, Liberia's path to multi-party democracy, I would say, started in 1985. Even though we're more than 170 years old, we actually have our first real multi-party election in 1985. So we are a nascent democracy, and then of course the war intervened. So yes, we want to build our democracy. We want to build a culture of democracy through our elections and other processes, and we want to consolidate the peace. And anything that undermines any of those two concepts, I'm afraid could be detrimental. So these elections are consequential for those reasons.
I agree. These elections are consequential because these elections will either make or break Liberia, like you rightly indicated. These elections are coming at a time that, after 6 years of leadership, many Liberians hold a view that the country, even with the international community, there are a lot of people who believe that Liberia is in retrogressing. The country is not making progress. I'm sure you still remember the U.S. Senator from New Jersey who referred to the current administration as a kleptocracy, meaning a government of thieves. And there have also been, strong criticism against the administration for being indifferent to the needs of the people. The Liberian economy is in shattered. Rule of law appears non-existent into this Liberia. The educational system is poorly, you know, uh, handled. It's poorly financed. I had the privilege of talking to my daughter, who resides in Liberia, and she attends the University of Liberia. And she said to me, "Dad, I'm sure, Alfonso, this is important that we dive into that."
Mhm.
She said, "Me,
Definitely.
Dad, at the University of Liberia, the situation is so
Bad.
deplorable that
Mhm.
people leave to go to Jalatown to fetch water and bring
What?
the water, the fetch water from
To
Jalatown
flush the toilets.
to flush the toilet." When you and I attended the University of Liberia, such condition never existed. And this is coming at a time that we have an administration that claim to be supporting or to have invested heavily in the educational sector. Uh, National security is under support as well. Every sector, every sector of the country, there are significant challenges. That's why people who love Liberia, people who follow the contemporary politics in Liberia, continue to say that this election is consequential, meaning that I mean, these elections will either make or break the country. Now, how do we sustain the Liberian democracy? As Liberians go to the poll on October the 10th, we have come to look at some of the things that are being unfolding in the country. And we will first go to Lofa County. We do not have the video from Lofa County, but Uh, Most of you watching this podcast will agree that last week there was a crisis between supporters of the Unity Party and the CDC. As a result of that, two persons reportedly died. The government issue, the government through the Ministry of Justice issued a statement that they will institute a full probe into the matter. Before coming to this podcast, it was reported in the media that individuals from both parties, the CDC and Unity Party, uh, some individuals were rounded up and taken to the local police headquarters in Vonjama. A probe into the matter was initiated. Now, what we have learned through media report, United of international observers that visited Lofa County complained that they noticed that those who were running up and taken to the local police authority, some insiders of the administration, including police authority, allow an official of the we administration to sign for some of the individuals that were accused of being actively engaged in the violence. So this gentleman signed for those individuals and they were let go. So after those people were let go, what did the government do or the authority? With the acquiescence of senior police authority in Monrovia, it was reported that only partisans of the Unity Party arrested for allegedly participating in the violence that were being transferred to Monrovia for further prosecution. And yesterday, I saw a group of talks from the ruling CDC in Monrovia. I don't know if you saw that video, and protesting that they want, you know, they want justice. They want justice, for what happened, for what reportedly happened to the partisans in Lofa County. But if the police is instituting a probe, and I want us to look at this, Alfonso, you have some legal minds. If the police is probing a matter that involves two groups, how do you, probe one of the groups and then the other go? How do you do that? Explain
So
that for us.
yeah, no, I can't explain it because it's not supposed to happen. So first of all, I was following that incident in Foya. It was live, Lofa TV, I think it was, where the gentleman was actually marching with the crowd and was describing the festive nature, and was basically saying that the crowd was marching towards the Medicoma Highway
Mhm.
to welcome Kisi people from America who were there to support Joseph Walker. And then suddenly he started saying that, oh, we are being told that the marshals were being attacked and there's a violence up in front of us. So he jumped on a motorbike and went. I'm saying this to tell the sequence and the genesis of what happened. So people who are marching to go receive their people suddenly left the road and decided to enter Tamafalaya for what? As
What's the reason? Yeah.
that's a reasonable question. So if you are an investigator, that's one thing you should look at. Then I also heard two versions of what might have transpired. One from Unity Party people and one from CDC people. One of the Unity Party guys said we were marching as we were going. Then the Tomafala people were standing on the road and they started. throwing stones at us. Then I heard another version from a CDC person who said when they got in front of Tomafala house as they were marching, then they started saying Tomafala that road. Okay, let's take the two versions and let's be open, but let's also look at the logic in it. So even if as they were if people are marching past your house and they say you are rogue, how does that then lead to stone throwing? You know, you rogue so they're throwing stones at you, or they call you rogue so you started throwing stones.
Mhm.
But these same people are also saying that you started throwing stones. So if you look at the whole logic, if you look at the investigation logically, and of course some of our argument, oh, I put all of my people in my fence and I said to put marching so that no, you don't assemble people in your fence and say you can't say that yes because the people are
The
marching.
people are marching.
People stay in their homes. The fact that you mobilize them for your fence, the fact that you have police people in the fence with the crowd suggests something different. That's another video. I'm sorry we can't play videos tonight. It's another video that happened months ago where a CDC leader in Lofa was speaking to a group of CDC people at CDC party headquarters
Yeah,
in Lofa. And Thomas Fowler was there and telling Thomas Fowler that the arms and ammunition we want in this county, we want our CDC people to be in possession of those arms.
yeah,
The police here, police commander, when we go to him and say this person is denigrating, criticizing government officials, so arrest him, he can say no, we can't do that. We can't arrest somebody for criticizing. When we go to the courts don't listen to what the court say is not a violation for anybody to criticize, so we can't arrest it. So we want police commander and police officers who are purely
musicians. Yeah,
and who will do whatever we want them to do. We want a court system that's purely citizen, so we want them to do. And my understanding is that the CDC government did exactly that. They replaced the police commander, they replaced the magistrate, everybody. The young man, there's another video where the police commander called Bala actually said he was marching with people and then took sides without investigation already concluded. My understanding is that they call him his nickname is Tomafala's son. That's his
okay.
nickname in for it. So again, Moses, I'm saying all of this, and listeners, I'm saying all of this to make the point that you made earlier. Violence around the elections. Can our police forces, our security forces be trusted to be impartial? One. Two, can our security forces be trusted to adequately protect the vote of the people? Three, when we fourth point, which you mentioned briefly, is that there was a statement issued by international observers around the issue of partisans of the two parties being
Yeah,
arrested, taken, but the ruling CDC partisans who were arrested, somebody who was a deputy minister for TVET, whatever, at some place where
yeah.
citizen
Sign for them.
came and signed them out and took them. But the Unity partisans are still being held in jail. My understanding is they're no longer in Vanjima. They
They're
were
being
moved.
transferred to Monroe. Yeah,
Oh, are they in Monrovia now? Because the
yeah.
last
Hmm.
thing I heard was they were in Banga.
Yeah, they
So
were being
my
transferred. Yeah.
question is this: why are you transferring them? Why you leave Lofa go to Banga into Monrovia? You don't have police in Lofa to investigate. You don't have police in Banga to investigate. You're taking them to Monrovia right away. That tells me two critical things, and that creates fear in my mind. Maybe they don't have police sufficient police people or police people with the capacity to do investigations in Lofa, or they don't have sufficient police people. Maybe they don't have sufficient police people in Bonn. So let's say something breaks out in Lofa Bonn. Are they able to control it? No. My information, real quickly, and I'll turn it over to you, is that in Foya there were only 6 police officers in the Foya. So when the incident broke off, some of whom were already in Tamafala house, by the way. So when the incident broke out, they couldn't contain the incident. So they had to wait for police people to come from Vanjima on motorbikes because they don't have cars. So they were asking people to go to the parking station and say, "Can you take me to Vanjima? I will pay you for that. I mean, for you, I pay you for that." So that's why the FOIA incident lasted as long as it did, because the police in Vanjima don't even have transportation to get to FOIA. That worries me about the election. What if something breaks out in Foya, in Feasible, in Masabola Home, in whatever in Zwadru on election day? Do we have police people to protect the citizens who want to vote? Do we have police people who protect the ballot boxes and the voting process? Impartially, of course. That's a question I want to throw out there to the Liberian people and to you, Moses.
Yeah, and a very, you know, I would say your analysis very good. What is happening in the country, and that just further, add up to why we even have to discuss this because it is impossible to have free, fair, credible elections in the absence of a security network, security institutions that people would look up to for trust and protection. You know, before we came to this podcast, the Shade affair at the U.S. Embassy in Monrovia, Catherine Rodriguez issued a statement. And in that statement, the U.S. Embassy made particular reference, y- you know, to the importance of ensuring that the electoral process will be violent free and that the State Department has threatened to impose visa restriction on anyone or any group of people that will engage in any act that will tend to intimidate or create electoral violence in Liberia. So I'm saying this to say that in the absence of a stable or peaceful environment, it is really, really going to be difficult to hold free and fair elections on October the 10th. Because, like you said, Alfonso, how do you, we are in 2023, and our security system in Liberia, it is operated like we are in the 1800s. I mean, is the police saying that you need to transport people from Lofa to Monrovia to be investigated? Don't they have a police department? Don't they have individuals in Lofa that we strongly believe that understand, policing, and that if someone is linked to a crime, they can easily figure out, and that person can be charged and forwarded to court. Do they understand the time, the resources that it takes for somebody to be moved from Lofa to Monrovia? And then not only doing that, the police now is accused of cherry picking.
Mm-hmm.
The police, chose to let one group of people walk away because somebody in government signed for them, and they say, "Hey, you know what? Let's forward the city. I mean, let's forward Patterson, the accused Patterson of the Unity Party, to court." It means that the police is biased, and you can't do that. This has claimed the attention of what international monitors, election monitors in Lofa, and you can't proceed like this. You have a police that is underfunded, ill-equipped. That's why we said earlier that this election is consequential. Because, like you said, Alfonso, if you have, hey, Umo, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. So, as I was saying, Alfonso, if you have reportedly only 6 police officers in Lofa County. How many officers will you have in Grand Crew County? It is my understanding that the entire police department in Grand Crew County, you have only two persons in the police department in Grand Crew County. Recently, there was election violence in Nima County. Even right now, as I speak to you, no one knows the outcome. You remember that violence involving
Yep.
Prince Johnson and the others from the
Yep.
CDC?
Yep.
Nobody knows.
A
So,
35-year-old young man died in that.
yes. So, all of these things, just further uh, create fear, instill fear in the minds of the people. And these things have the potential of undermining the electoral process.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, as we discuss this, let's move on to a recent and news interview. Journalist Philip Brown. I'm sure you know Mr. Brown. He's one of the executives of the Publishers Association of Liberia. He's former he's former assistant minister of defense for public affairs. Uh, he said, I listened to him, and he said he also had the privilege of doing some public relations work for the Unity Party when Mrs. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was president. In recent times, uh, Mr. Brown has gone public, posting on Facebook hate messages, posting on Facebook that Liberians should begin to stock up food, prepare to stay home, because he strongly believes that if an election is held today, the Unity Party may not accept the outcome of the election if the party doesn't win. Or the CDC may also not accept the outcome of the election if the CDC doesn't win. And he believes if that happens, he foresees what? A bigger problem. So he's forewarning Liberians not to allow the children to go into the street. Mr. Brown is a journalist. I know somebody will say he has a right to free speech, but when someone writes some things that undermines free speech, it's like somebody going in a movie theater and while everybody there watching movie and you stand there and say fire, fire. And you say, oh, that's free speech. No, that's not free speech. You have just endangered the safety of the people in the theater because people will start jumping here and there. People will hurt themselves, and you're going to have a complete pandemonium in the theater. And this is what Mr. Brown is doing in our country. As a journalist, what you make of Mr. Brown posting, and even there's a news conference that he had with I mean not news conference, but the news interview he had with Mr. T. Majlate on Wednesday of this week, saying that he
So,
strongly believes that you know uh, there could be a problem right after the election. What do you think
so,
about that?
so definitely, let me begin by saying I probably would have been one of the people that would have said, "Oh, Mr. Brown has the right, freedom of speech to say whatever." Except that he's not just predicting, and he's not just predicting or assuming based upon circumstances and what's happening in the country. He's specifically arguing, almost arguing for a, a, a process that leads us to that. He's not saying the way I see things, I'm afraid there could be violence or whatever. He specifically said, and I read some of his posts, at least
Yeah.
two. He specifically said, "Oh, in 2005, Georgia won. International community gave the election to Ellen Sally. In 2011, Georgia won and gave it to Ellen Sally. So what wrong with Georgia take it and steal it right now and do
Yeah.
something, whatever?" So he seems to either be speaking as an insider from the Weir camp who knows what they're planning, or somebody who sympathizes with them and is putting it out there so they can do what he wants them to do. Steal the election so that he can have it. That's to that extent, that's dangerous. That's incendiary. That's an incitement to cheat and to violence. And I wish that the Justice Ministry and the so-called Joint Security, which had a press conference the other day, by the way, and asked people saying don't make incendiary, inciting statements and all of that, have unfortunately failed. To invite Mr. Philibert Brown, ask him what he knows, maybe tell him stop making these kinds of comments because they will undermine the election. And they will undermine the election in two ways, or they could undermine the election in two ways. When you put it out there that there will be violence, is one thing that happens. It suppresses the vote. Nobody wants to walk into a violent situation. So when you tell people there will be violence, they will stay away. When you also tell people that your vote will not count or might not count, people say then no need for me to go and vote. So that has the tendency of suppressing the vote, which undermines democracy itself. Because the basis of democracy, the basis of democratic governments is the will of the people. When you do or say things that undermine the will of the people such that people stay away, then you do not have a democratic government that has the mandate of the people. And that is a problem. So there is an intimidation factor based upon what Philip is saying, but also based upon the violence that's taking place. Foya, District number 10, journalists being beaten, CDC people attacking Unity Party people on August 25th when they were going to their party headquarters. And all of these things, as you said, Moses, earlier, the police and the Justice Ministry has not said anything to the Liberian people in terms of if whether or not anybody were arrested and prosecuted. So what people see is, hey, come on, you're not doing your job or you're taking sides with the government. And that can also be an intimidation factor in a voter suppression. And it can subvert the will of the people. But here's one thing I want to conclude because I want you to come in and also there's a time control. I think I'm an avowed Democrat. I believe in the will of the but I also believe that when you subvert the will of the people, you're playing with fire because the people at some point will rise up and resist. And that's historical. It's not me saying it. It's not me saying it's history. The French Revolution was based upon that. The founding of the United States of America was based upon that. When the king and the kingdom in Britain was oppressing the people of the land. The French Revolutionary people rose up, the Bastille, and all over in Africa, West Africa recently. So that's just an historical fact, but it's also what how they call it said. It's a fact of human history. Human beings, even animals of lesser intelligence, do not let to be suppressed. When you suppress them, you grab it or you hold it tight, it will bite you. So I want to send a message to our people. We have to be careful how we suppress the will, or we intend to suppress the will of the people, because the people could rise up, and unfortunately, it can undermine our own progress and the progress of our country.
Well put, Alfonso. Let me use this time to tell our many viewers out there that you are watching the 190th. edition of the Issues Room podcast. We've been around for a while now. 190th edition of the Issues Room. And today we are looking at electoral violence, comments, hate messages that are emanating from people in Liberia and outside of Liberia. And we also are looking at, what the international community is saying to ensure that the elections that have been duped consequential are held under a free and fair condition. I'm Moses Sandy, and I'm here with Alphonso Unit. Our colleague Volcano Shelton is currently in Liberia. He's unable to be with us today because he's not doing too well. We hope and pray that he will be able to bounce back quickly because Mr. Shelton will be coming to you from Monrovia on Tuesday with updates from various polling centers. We will be here with a special podcast on the elections. You can't afford to miss the Tuesday edition of the Issues Room. Let me announce now the call-in number. We want you to be a part of this discussion tonight. So the call-in number is 302 494 4688. Call and be a part of this important discussion. We are talking about the future of your country. Now, let's look at something that Mr. Brown also said on Wednesday when he had the opportunity of talking to T Max of the 50-50 show, Mr. Gelata, T Max Gelata.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Brown, publicly announced that when Mr. Salif was president, he did some public relations work for the Unity Party. And he said there were times that the administration literally bribed journalists. He said there were journalists that he, on consistent basis, had some media institutions that he consistently took to Ghana. He said some journalists were paid as high as $8,000 monthly.
To do what?
Just to do what he calls
Public,
public
so-called
relations.
public relations.
Yeah, compromising the truth. I will put it that way. Looking the other way, not being honest in the reporting of happenings in the country. And Mr. Brown said that. What makes Mr. Brown's statement more troubling is that it comes at a time that the CDC that he now associates with, in fact, he claims to be a relative of President Weah. Recently, there was this report that the current administration allocated $2 million for bribing journalists. And there was a report that came out that linked Mr. Brown to being one of those journalists that went to Ghana. They were taken there by President Weah and some executives of the CDC. And they were reportedly bribed. Now you can see all the publications, George Weah and honor for being the most accomplished leader. I mean, you can tell all these publications, other political parties, what is happening in the various camps, those reports are not making headlines. Everything is about the CDC.
I've
So
been
it
seeing,
tells you,
I've been seeing the Dear Leader publications. Yep.
Yeah. So
Based
yeah,
upon,
happy birthday, Mr. President. That's
yeah,
what we see.
and that and
And
that's the big
he
headline.
said,
Yeah.
yeah, and what he said that was also troubling was that he said he did it for the Unity Party, and he can also do it for the current administration. Now you tell me, Alfonso, as a media person, don't you see that as troubling as a journalist coming to indict the integrity of the Liberian media?
So it's more than troubling.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
unfortunately, the Press Union of Liberia, the Publisher Association of Liberia, none of these institutions, have come to distance themselves from, the irresponsible comment that emanated from Mr. Brown.
But Mr. Brown
Is that
said,
journalism?
mind you, Moses, according to you, Mr. Brown said that he's doing public relations for the government. Sort of. He admitted that because, as you said, his argument is that, oh, he did the same thing, public relation for Unity Party as well. So obviously he's saying, oh, I did it for Unity Party, so I'm doing it for these people now. And because I did it for Unity Party in the past, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. But let's begin from the beginning. A newspaper, a radio station, a television station, except you expressly state that you are a public relations business, you are not a public relations entity. If you claim to be a media house and a media institution, you cannot at the same time be a public relations because what is public relations? Public relations is not reporting the news. Public relations is not telling the facts. Public relations is queuing and promoting and making whoever your client is to look good in spite of whatever without following journalistic ethics. And so Mr. Brown claiming that through his hot peppered newspaper, he did public relations, even though he doesn't even have a public relation firm, is crazy. But again, who goes after people? And that brings us to our point. The president of Liberia, the so called Publishers Association, they all should speak up and say, but no, you are ruining the image of journalism and of the Publishers Association. But again, they can't do that. And I believe one of the reasons they can't do that is that all of them might have received the same amount of money or might even receive money from Mr. Brown. So if they come to criticize Mr. Brown might say, but I just gave you your own 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 yesterday and you received it. I think another point is that that you made. Yes, I do see all of these publications. I mean, in a critical time like this, when we don't even have a final voter, when we don't know where all of the polling places are located for people to go and vote, almost all of the major newspapers in the country, the top boldface headline is "Happy Birthday, Mr. President." That reminds me of Mobutu
Mhm.
Sese Seko years. When there were posters all over Kinshasa and everywhere of Mobutu Sese Seko. All the newspaper and radio stations were playing songs or singing music of Mobutu Sese Seko and Idi Amin Dada and all of it. Unfortunately, Liberia has descended to that level, perhaps. I just hope and pray that we have peaceful elections in that country, that the people's votes are not stolen or wasted, or that people are not forced by the circumstances to stay home. A former U.S. Secretary of State, Under Secretary of State for African Affairs, Herman Cohen, said something very profound years ago.
Mhm.
And a lot of us did not understand it at the time, especially as young people. Many Liberians thought what Herman Cohen meant when he said, if the war continues for the next year and it enters Monrovia, Liberia will go 100 years behind. Herman Cohen did not mean that the streets we have will be uprooted, that the buildings that were built will be uprooted, etc., and somehow forests will grow in all of the towns and villages. What Herman
Yeah.
Cohen meant was that the human resource of the country would be so impacted that we will not even remember ourselves. We will not even understand what's going on. And that's exactly what's happening in Liberia today. Moses,
Yeah.
I go on Facebook
Mm.
and I want to say something, but I hold myself back. People, I mean, where's our school system? Where's our education system? People who claim they have law degrees and master degree, they put something on Facebook and you want to cry. Subject and verb don't even collaborate. And I'm saying this to make an important point that you mentioned earlier, and I didn't mention. That's why I'm going back to it. You said this government clearly invest in education. What kind of education, my brother? I went to school not in Monrovia. I went to school in one of the Leeward counties, and I graduated from high school back in Monrovia to go to University of Liberia. I was lucky. I had a support system, parents, whatever. I could come to America. I mean Monrovia to go to school. I can tell you that there were people who sat in a class with me who were equally, if not more, competent that couldn't make it to Monrovia and go to that one University of Liberia. So therefore, they stay in the bush. I saw one of my classmates the other day. He's of my age. He just entered community college. That's sad.
Yeah.
But the important thing is that he entered community college because the Unity Party administration under Ellen Sirleaf and Joseph Boakai built community colleges in almost all of the counties. And I asked myself if there were community colleges at the time I graduated high school in rural Liberia, maybe my colleagues would have had an opportunity and today they will have jobs and have the education to do. This man, he's not a young man, he's an old man, some old as well, as far as concerned. He's a man just entering community college. So when you talk about investment in education, I just want to make this point. Paying YFE is not investment in education, my brother. Let me tell you that. The children don't even have the foundation. Or they take YS and they pass and they can't even find jobs. Very quickly before I land, President William Arab Tobert and President Samuel Canyon Doe have programs at the university that also pay free education, that gave dormitory housing and stipend to students. But those programs were targeted. If you went to agriculture college under Samuel Doe, you got free education and you got dormitory and you got your books and everything paid and you got money for school. On October, teacher education. And Samuel Doe continued. You went to teacher college, it was also free. You went to forestry under the both presidents, it was also free. They did those things because those were the areas where Liberia had a great need and you had to address it. You don't just get general. So a lot of the children now going to say free education, they go do accounting, they go do this. They can't find jobs because those things are not available. And Liberia doesn't have an industry in those areas. But we have forestry, we have logging companies, we have all of those. So that whole nonsense of talking about education, we do education. That's why I wanted to make this point. I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to send this message to Liberian people that paying YFE is not investment in education. It's a waste in education, especially when you have several towns and villages and communities in Liberia where there are no schools, where the children just don't have schools. I was shocked when I saw a child come from River Says and I said, "Hello, how are you?" And the child couldn't understand what I was saying. Yeah, I grant arms. You go.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you said is absolutely true, and the situation is so sad. And what makes it real sad is that you have a leadership that remains indifferent. I don't know whether the individuals who are in leadership position. I don't know whether they're being honest or they just live in a different world. Because sometimes they say things that are completely delusional. For example, I had a privilege of watching the video that came from Grand Crukane, and Mr. Weah was talking to his people. He said, uh, in 5 years, what his administration has accomplished, no other leaders or no other administration before this administration ever accomplished that. So you can see the dishonesty on the part of the president. If this guy claims to be the most accomplished, then why is it that you have only two police officers in Grand Crew County where he comes from? Why is it that the two police officers in Grand Crew County don't carry batons? They don't have motorbikes. They don't have assigned police vehicles. Why would a whole county have only two police officers? If Mr. Weah does not live in Utopia, why would he have to fly by helicopter to go to the southeast? Hmm? Alfonso,
So Moses,
if this guy is in his right frame of mind, I'm just saying this,
I think Moses,
because yes,
I think they are in the right frame of mind. I think they decide to deliberately lie to the people because again there was a gap in history. The young people, majority of whom are of voting age and vote and decide, don't know what happened before they were born or before they. So there's a gap, and these guys are deliberately trying to exploit that gap. Let me say a few things. St. John River Bridge in Liberia, St. Paul River Bridge, the old bridge, Waterside Bridge, Gabriel Tucker Bridge, Tottenham University in Harper, the multilaterals in Zwadru, in Vanjima, in Abel, and other places.
yeah, yeah,
Does Mr. Weah know who built those things? Did he build them?
he
There
did.
were presidents before him that built
That's
those.
what I said. Mr. Weah lives in a utopia.
He doesn't know, and A, he doesn't know, and B, he thinks he can lie his way out. The road, the particular road we're talking about from Monrovia all the way to Harper, he the one built it, the one he couldn't even pave. Ellen Salif and the Unity Party built the road from Harper to Fishtown in Riverview County. All Mr. Weah needed to do so, we no longer have a Ganta Harper Highway problem. We have a Ganta Fishtown problem. He could have just built that road. He don't even need to build it and pave it. Just fix it and grade it to standard. He told the people that somehow the rainy season, so he did it because it rained in bed. Are you stupid? It rained for 6 years. So I'm saying all of the hospitals, in all of the counties, except for the one that the people put up, the Japanese or whoever put it up in whatever county, what's that county? Whatever. All of the major hospitals in about 14 of the counties were built before Mr. Weah came into power. How can he say he's done more than all of the
In
presidents?
5 years, in five
How
years,
can
what
he?
he has done,
How can you claim that? All of and those hospitals, by the way, you haven't put a single drug in any of those
no
hospitals. How can
drug.
you claim you did more than
And you
those
say,
people? Before
yeah,
William V. Stotman, the entire hinterland had no school or education, nothing.
no.
So what you say about William Tubman? What you say about Tarver? Who
All
the
the highways.
go all those highway, Kyrie, all of those things.
Mhm.
Tarver literally built sinker.
Yeah.
You're telling me you did more than any of these
All the
people?
past leaders, Mr. Weah said,
Are
what he
you?
has accomplished in 5 years,
It's ignorance.
surpass
It's ignorance and insanity. But what angers
everything he has done, surpasses all past leaders.
Yeah.
Let me just say something.
Yeah.
Besides being a media person, I have a training as a clinical social worker, and sometimes when we work with people who have mental health disorder or mental health, you know, or psychological problems, sometimes they come across, you know, as delusional. When someone is delusional, it means the person is out of touch with reality.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's a form of mental health that if someone you may find a guy who is hallucinating, who hearing voices, who's seeing images that other people don't see, who had this grandiosity, this big idea that the guy is literally homeless, but
Hmm.
yet he portrays himself as the CEO of a very viable entity.
Yep.
Take for example, you got somebody who walking around, who can barely afford food, claiming to be the vice president of Liberia. There are people when they have this form of, schizophrenia, uh, they do stuff like that. They say things like that. They say things that are completely weird, strange, that just don't add
Do
up.
you mean,
And
sorry,
so
Moses, I'm not
sometimes,
cutting you off.
yeah.
Do you mean
So
a statement like we're selling electricity to Africans?
of course that's been delusional. Yeah,
That will
weird.
fall in that
It's very.
category, correct?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
following that category. The statement that came from Mr. Weir saying that
Mm.
of all the leaders, all past administration, what he has been able to do in 5 years or a little over 5 years, far surpasses what all the other leaders did in the past. It means that Mr. Weir, needs some psychological help. The guy is literally, naked, but he doesn't realize that he's naked. So when you
Yeah.
have a problem like that, that man needs help.
Mm.
How do you rationalize that? You stand before your own people in Grand Crew County. You do not have a functioning police department in Grand Crew. And you say what you have accomplished fast, surpasses what other leaders did in the past?
Not even a hospital, bosses, not
No.
even a clinic. And he's
My man,
telling the
Grand Crew
people
County is one of the least developed.
it's the remotest county. There may be bipolar and whatever, but yeah.
George Weah needs help. That's why we say this election is consequential. I know we are far pressed to time. We have
Mm.
2 to 3 minutes to wrap this discussion up. And I would like to give it to you. And then after that, I will just wrap it from my end. What would be your
Yeah,
parting statement?
I just go a few seconds. I
Hmm.
want to urge the Liberian people to go out on election day, vote your conscience, vote right. Do not sell your vote. Your vote is very powerful. It's too expensive to be bought. I'm hearing stuff out there that they want to go out to the Zogos. Some people want to go out to the Zogos and pay them money and take their voting cards from them because they believe that some of the Zogos will not vote for them. So it's better for them not to vote. Your vote is very important. It's about your life, it's about your future, it's about the future of your country and your community, and it's about your rehabilitation of your Zogo. Do not sell your vote. Go out and I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. At this point, I believe you already know. I just want to tell you to go out, vote, vote right, vote for your future, vote for the future and betterment of your country and your children.
Thank you, Alfonso. And I would like to add on to what you said. My advice to the electors will be this: please, on Tuesday or even before Tuesday, think about the future of your country. Think about your family's future. Just do a reflection. 6 years ago, where were you? Do not be in a survival mode. Oh, the kids need something to eat now.
Oh, it seems to me that Moses dropped off, so I'll continue the process. Fergie, I don't know if you are still on. You had a question that you asked earlier. So maybe let me answer that question. Your question was whether or not we believe that Joseph Boakar's comment in Lofa was based upon all of the happenings and developments in the country. Yes, I believe so. And by the way, when somebody says that if the elections are rigged or if we don't have free and fair elections, we will not have a country, it doesn't mean that that person is bringing a civil war. It is a warning to the people who are in charge of the elections if they believe in maintaining a country to make sure that elections are free, fair, and credible. Secondly, I don't believe that anybody should sit supinely if their vote is rigged, if it's cheated. They should resist. I don't mean they should take arms and fight, but they should resist that process. Because if we do not resist, unfortunately, we do not have a democracy, and that vote rigging and vote cheating can continue. So definitely, I hope these elections are not rigged. I have no reason to believe that they will be rigged, although I have concerns regarding the safety of the polls, the behavior of the police, and the behavior of the election commission. But I hope the elections will be free, fair, and credible. But I also believe that if they're not credible, there will be consequences. And based upon those consequences, anybody who's trying to subvert the will of the people, please stop. Please don't do it because we want to build our democracy and we want to sustain our peace. Well, Moses, the host, I believe, has dropped off for some reason. But I want to say to all of our listeners, I can't see the list because I wasn't the host. But thank you for joining. Please share the link. Please share with people who are not watching tonight. You can always watch it later. And please send a message to Liberians out there. We want peaceful elections. Go out and vote peacefully. Stay in line as long as you can to vote. And let your voices and your will be heard. Your vote should not be bought by anybody. Good night. Look forward to seeing you on election day. God bless you. God bless our country and our people. Thank you.